Welcome, freelancers, to our Anthem show. Thank you so much for joining us today. Joining me today is Eric's, and
how's it going?
Dantics is probably still asleep because in the U.S. we have this thing called a time change that I forgot to tell him about. And over there, you guys don't have the time change thing, do you?
Well, I mean, we do, but ours is different time to yours, so it always kind of throws me off because I remember we used to kind of like cover Destiny a lot. It would always change for us, and then change for Bungie, and then I'm just like, I have no idea what's going on. So yeah, I never know really.
It's okay. That's my bad. My bad. I should have let everybody know. But I'm glad you happen to be awake. It's later in the day and earlier in the day for him. But let's talk about what's going to be on today's show. So basically, we are 1 month out now since the launch of Anthem, and we're going to be talking about the current state of Anthem, what's still good, what's not so good, what they direly need to be looking at with the game, and we're also going to be talking about a lot of the games that have been pulling us away and what Anthem could potentially learn from them. Because to be honest, I've been playing a lot of Destiny, and it's been hard for me to go back to Anthem right now. And we're going to be taking your questions. So if you have anything you would like us to discuss, hit us up in chat. I'll pull them into a doc during the show, and we can address them as we go. So let's get right into it. Eric's, what would you say you're feeling about Anthem right now? I know you've been doing a lot of Division content and looking at you have to juggle a lot of games. So where are you at with Anthem? Are you playing it still? Are you taking a break? Are you kind of just tell me your thoughts.
So I think for me, like I'm in that sort of I say for this past week I have purely been focused on Division because obviously the game just came out, and the nature of the way that I obviously cover games, and much like all of us, right, when it first comes out you blitz it for a week. So for the past week I haven't played anything but Division. Last time I played Anthem was obviously kind of just before Division came out. I think it's definitely sort of like it's in that point where right now where like I wouldn't say I put like I'm having a break from it. It's more just a point where it's like it's reached that area in a very similar way to say the way that I consume Monster Hunter, where it's like I've done a lot of the stuff that I need to get. Yes, of course, I'm still pursuing, some legendary items. Yes, of course, I could get some better rolls, but kind of until they like start raining loot on me, I'm not necessarily as inclined to do that back to back. But it's kind of at that point now where like I've ticked off a lot of what I need to do, so I'm almost kind of waiting for the next update because looking at the roadmap, they said that in theory, we should have some stuff coming towards the end of March. So it's probably only going to be, hopefully, assuming that timeline hasn't changed, probably only going to be like a week or so before we hear something new. So I'm kind of just sort of like, you know what? I'm still obviously having fun with like the aspects of the game that I enjoy, but there's stuff that's out right now. So let me just kind of take a week out, and then I'll probably jump back in next week, test out a few new things, stuff like that.
Yeah. So I totally get where you're coming from. My perception is that I've seen the press from like Forbes especially. I think Paul Tassi does an excellent job about keeping up with the minutia of what's going on in the shared world shooter space. And for me, when I see him writing about how loot isn't dropping properly, yes, GM2 and 3 have higher chances for Masterworks and legendaries. That is a positive change, but they're still an incredibly tedious grind because of how enemy health is scaled. So for me, I'm just kind of waiting and seeing what the developers end up doing. There was a fantastic Reddit post from Jesse, right? Jesse is his name. It's what's his tag here? Decora's, I think. Derek has. Yeah. So he kind of went on Reddit and he talked about pre-game release versus post-game release communication from developers and sort of what you can expect from them, talking about Anthem. And it's good to see this sort of what's it called, where opacity or transparency is the word. I work in Photoshop too much, but anyway, just seeing this sort of clarity from a developer talking about why they're not communicating about certain things or can't, and I like that a lot. That all said, they've been pretty quiet lately, and I really, really hope that's because their heads down, they're making sure that the game is working properly and improving it the way that we hope to see. For me personally, I need a reason to sign on, and gearing up a character for nothing is a really, really difficult gameplay loop. The core gameplay loop of Anthem is excellent. You'd probably agree with that, right? Like just the shooting 100%. And everything like that. But hearing that the Ranger basically has components that work against against the builds that you're supposed to make that are blast and impact damage, hearing that loot drops aren't dropping properly, hearing that equipping one legendary weapon basically is your best way to get the best DPS possible when playing the game. This is all really concerning, and it's concerning because it affects the core gameplay loop of Anthem, and it really
does, yeah.
I'm just like, well, I'm going to wait until I fix this stuff, because clearly they're going to have to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to improve their loot. So that's where I'm at with Anthem. Do you feel sort of the same way? I mean, I'm sure you'll still check it out, but...
I mean, 100%. I mean, I'm still, I still, as you say, I still enjoy like the core flow, and that's ultimately what kind of does still keep you coming back. But it's true that, I mean, like in these kind of games where you are pursuing loot, like, being able to build your build is why you play this game, right? So then to find that, like, I had my build that I'm like super happy with, and to find that I could essentially have made it better by unequipping quite a lot of stuff is a bit like, it's kind of, and it's one of those difficult things. And I mean, as you said before about like the transparency, it's a really difficult thing to juggle, because like, I obviously know from back in like when I used to work in industry, like at Microsoft and stuff, it's quite hard to be transparent, because I think a lot of people don't always realize like a lot of the red tape just internally, right? But then when you go from a position pre-launch where like everyone hangs on to every word because they want to know more, so then like the transparency is like, oh, this is amazing, and then suddenly like post-launch, like they still post basically quite frequently, but if there's anything like that is kind of perceived downtime, people are like, why are they not saying anything? And ultimately it's kind of like one of those things where they want to talk as much as they can, but if they're basically just saying, right, today we're still working on fixing stuff, like no update, people are going to be like, what the hell, man? So it's kind of that weird, it's very weird, it's kind of a weird balance where trying to be transparent is, I think, is the best way to move forward. But I think people obviously need to understand on the flip side as well that if they are not saying something for a week, it's not necessarily because they're hiding per se, but it might just be that literally they're just like, hey, we tried a few things today, the patch hasn't quite fixed yet, so we're still working on it. So yeah, but I mean, no, I definitely agree though on the loot front. I mean, yeah, it's, and I think you'll kind of touch on that in a minute, but playing the games like, we've been recently like other looter shooters, and I've recently been finishing my season 16 Diablo character, just reminds me just how much loot rains down in those other games. I kind of feel like if Anthem did that, even amidst all of its problems it has right now, if there were a lot of bugs, or like even if it got to the point where like I could equip a legendary and it kind of completely dominated my finely tuned build, if I was being rained down with loot, I probably wouldn't even mind so much, because I'd be like, you know what, I'm just getting legendaries left, right, and center. I'm going to start banking them, because then when they fix it, I'm going to have loads of stuff to play with.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
and for me, like, Destiny's facing some challenges with their loot drops right now. Also, they know that it's not working as intended. You'll get drops in a slot that ends up being like negative to where your power level currently is, and that's a really, really frustrating thing. So Anthem isn't the first game to deal with these sort of problems and struggles with balancing out loot. No. But 1 month out from Anthem, there's really not a reason to be coming back to it, at least for me, because there's no new challenge to face. There's not a raid. The Shaper Storms are still months out, and with the gear not dropping in the way that they necessarily intended, or at least the community wanted, and the builds for Ranger, my favorite class, being broken, I'm just kind of like, well, I don't really have a lot of reason to be playing right now.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
My favorite class isn't working the way it's supposed to. The loot drops aren't working really well. I won't say at all, but I have way more purples, and I experienced this with Destiny a lot. The hardest time for me to sign back into Destiny is when I have a bunch of garbage loot and I have to go through Dim and basically figure out, all right, what's the best roll on my 15th Tiger Spite that I got, delete all the other ones, and then min-max. It's the least fun part of the game. And I think these looter shooters need to figure out a better system for the loot game, because the least fun part is going through all of your inventory, sorting it all, and then deleting the stuff that you don't want.
100%.
All these looter shooters. Division suffers from it. Destiny suffers from it. And Anthem suffers from it. So that's where I'm at with it. Do you have any final thoughts, or should we move on to the games that are pulling us away right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think basically, I mean, similar sort of thing. Yeah, I definitely agree on the loot management front, because I mean, playing Division this week, it has so many things. You have guns, you have gear, you have mods, you have gun mods, you have gear mods. It's just like, okay, it's kind of crazy. But no, I think that. I definitely think, though, in the short term, because they've had it a couple of times, right? Recently, they've put out updates, and then loot's dropped quite frequently, and people are like, "Oh, this is cool," and then they'll be like, "Oh, that's actually a mistake." So I feel like whatever mistake it is that you're doing for that, just put that back in for now, because honestly, like, it's not almost like, not to say it will fix all the problems, but honestly, I feel like so many issues right now would be somewhat forgiven if you were just being showered with loot. Like you could just
Yeah.
be like, okay, it's, you know what, it's fun because that's the thing. Again, the gameplay is so much fun, right? That like I will go back in, and if almost everything that I'm shooting is just raining things out, okay, it's a bit of an exaggeration. But if it's happening, I'm like, you know what, that's fine because it's fun. I'm blowing things up. I'm seeing like loot showers, and I'm dismantling half of it. But that's what you do in Diablo, because that's where, like, when I was running through recently, like I'm getting golds and oranges, like I'm deleting them faster than I can get them. But it still feels great, right? So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So ideally, they would just let the loot rain so that we can make our god builds, basically, and set up for the stronghold encounter that's coming in May. That would give me a little bit more incentive to sign on. But there are some excellent things happening with the competition in the looter shooter space. Before we go there, there was one question from the community. By the way, if you have any questions, leave them in chat. I will pull them into a document and we can address them on the show. There's only 2 of us today, so totally happy to answer your questions.
Dantics did just message. He said he just woke up if you did want to sort of switch it up.
Really? All right. So we're going to go to a technical difficulties screen, and then I will be right back, and we will bring Dantics into the show. Give me 2 seconds, everybody. Doing it live, everyone. All right. How do we add him? Place. My mic's still hot. Hey, chat. And we're back, everybody. And look who is here. Dantics decided to wake up and join us on the show. Now, I do apologize. I give you a hard time, but it's kind of my fault. I forgot to let you know about the U.S. time change and how that would impact the show. But you're here now. That is the important thing. So we're kind of talking about the state of Anthem, what's good, what's bad, and what's not working as intended. I would love to hear your thoughts, Dantics. You are like mainly Anthem focused, so I think your opinion would be really, really valuable in this respect. What do you think they're doing right, and what do you think they need to improve to maintain the audience now that it's been a month since launch? Because for me, I don't have a lot of reason to be playing right now. There's nothing for me to really be chasing. What are your thoughts?
So what did I miss so far? Alex, what was your kind of response to this? Just so I don't double up here.
I mean, it was mainly the same sort of thing in that like right now, obviously, you know, the core gameplay flow is just still super exciting, but because the loot like frequency still isn't comparable to like other loot shooters, it's kind of like because without getting all the perfectly min-max things, I've ultimately got what I need, right? I've got a super solid build that gets me through like GM, so I'm just like, well, I could just not grind and I'm still perfectly competent for the toughest content in the game. But if I was playing through and I was being given loot for absolutely everything that I killed, I would probably just play because being rained down on loot, even if you don't use it, even if you dismantle it, is kind of just super satisfying. So
yeah,
that's gonna
playing a bit of Division 2, I feel like the loot frequency most definitely needs to change. Also, there's a few things within Anthem right now that have just been discovered by a few Redditors. I've just made a video on that, wherein the loot kind of is inconsequential in a way. You can just get essentially one legendary weapon, unequip all your other weapons or your other gear items, and components, just equip level 1 ones, and you'll have the highest melee and ultimate damage in the game. So it just feels like, and that's what I'm doing now, by the way. I've just kind of like unequipped everything, just have my one legendary, and I'm doing like a million damage with my ultimate. There's just no point of loot right now. It's just kind of a joke. So I just feel like the whole system needs this big overhaul. The gear system needs something drastic to change right now, and playing other games like Division 2 just points out those flaws so much more, and it's just really sad considering it's such a great core game. At its core, it's great. It's got such potential, but what the chase is all about just doesn't resonate well with me anymore. I don't know what to do.
Mm.
Yeah. Oops. Windows breaking. One of the questions that came up from the community was, do you think Anthem is making too many changes? I would say no. I think that they're not making the right kind of changes. And when all I'm hearing is stuff like the issue that Dantics just brought up and the builds for Ranger being totally busted basically because the components are working against each other every time you try and build something interesting, that just to me says I'm not going to play until I hear that this stuff is fixed. And other games have been sort of pulling me away because they're doing some interesting things. Do you guys think they're making too many changes, or would you agree that the right kind of changes aren't happening yet?
I think
those are the only two answers you can pick. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes or no. I think they're trying, and in a perfect world, trying is all you need, right? They're trying to get it right, but I think fundamentally what they have is a product that wasn't made right from the start. I hate to say that. It really breaks my heart, but it's like they're putting a Band-Aid on something without fixing it entirely, and the Band-Aids are just creating other problems. I equated it to pulling on a string, pulling on a knot, and it's slowly unraveling and everything just kind of falls apart. Instead of fixing one problem, they're just making two others. And I don't think that's the right way to go. I think they really need to put their heads down, just put in more content where they can, put their heads down on the problems and really fix them, not just kind of hatch over them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Eric, do you have any thoughts? We have another question.
Yeah,
too.
I mean, I think it's almost just kind of like one of those. It almost needs like a Loot 2.0, kind of like, you know, how Taken King completely revamped. I know it sounds kind of silly to say, like, you know, a month after launch, but I almost feel like they kind of just need that time because I understand, you know, the game's out, it's a live service, people are kind of want to fix it, so there's that part of it where they're like, we have to do something now. So obviously they're trying to react to that, but it's almost like they just need to be like, okay, let's just. And I'm sure they have. I'm sure they've got, you know, that's how teams work. I'm sure they've got different teams working on different things, but they almost need that team to just be like, we're just going to work on like a complete overhaul for the system, and then maybe kind of roll that out as part of the stuff in the background, because there's a few things that definitely need to be addressed. But I still feel like you could probably circumvent some of that by, you know, if you give some people some short-term chases by, you know, increasing loot frequency, maybe throwing in some additional items for people to pursue short-term while you work on the bigger stuff, then maybe, you know. Yeah. I don't know the answer because I'm obviously not I'm not a game designer, so I don't know how easy it is to say just do this, man, because it's probably not that easy. But yeah.
Yeah.
Resilience has an excellent philosophy. He just posted it in chat. I'll read it to you guys. I believe in Bioware and what they're doing. I'm just going to be patient and wait until the product is
100%.
finished, basically. And that's kind of what I'm doing. I also believe that Bioware believes in this game. They said that publicly multiple times, that Anthem is here to stay. They're going to continue improving it, and I like that a lot. Yes, there are still critical statements that we're going to make about the game and things that we would like to see finished, but at the end of the day, it's okay to take a break. Destiny has the same philosophy. I think any looter shooter is like, hey, go do real life stuff for a while. Come back when we're ready. And that's the thing I'm going to do with Anthem. Also, it is frustrating, and I totally get where the community is coming from when they're like, this is 6 years, and they kind of introduce this, and they have major core fundamental problems. And that's what people are concerned about. So I understand that perspective. But I'm just like, look, I had a good 100 hours or so with the game. I'm okay with taking a break, waiting them for the figure out the major problems with the product, and then come back good to go and kick some butt.
Exactly. I mean, it's similar kind of thing I said before, like the likeness to Monster Hunter. The way that, you know, I'm a huge Monster Hunter fan and have been for the past like 10 years. But the way that I play World now is that, you know, because I've invested thousands of hours into that. But now I just, every time they release an update, I go and play it for like the week, put it back down again, play some other stuff, and I'm completely fine with that. Like, I am honestly like, it's funny because when we kind of move on to speak about the games, but like playing Division 2 this week, Division 2's been like, it's had a fantastic launch, so much great content, but it's also made me realize just how much I love Anthem's gameplay. Like I still think to this day, even though Anthem has a lot of issues and has a lot of things like that, to this day I still think Anthem on the looter shooter front has been the most enjoyable from a gameplay moment to moment perspective. So exactly that philosophy. I'm perfectly happy to wait. I've got plenty of stuff to play right now. There are loads of games coming out, and anytime there's an update, I'm fully back. I'll be there, check it out, play it. So, yeah, Bioware, do your thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. And isn't there like a June EA Play
Yes, yeah.
thing coming up. Yeah.
Is
There
there?
is. So yeah, there's something coming up in June or July or something like
Yeah,
that.
E3.
Yeah, play.
Yeah.
Yeah, E3. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's when I'd like to see, a big drop of content. If that happens, if they change the gear system around, if they add some cool new missions, if the stronghold's already in there, that's when I think I'll jump in and play again. And I think that's when they should be like, hey, look, we've rejigged all this stuff. Come check us out again. I think they should just really buckle down for a couple months and do that. And then I'd love to jump back in, like Alex was saying. I think the gameplay loop is, like Alex was saying, one of the best I've ever played. I really like it, which is why all this little stuff is such a shame. If they get just the little things right, then I'd have so much fun. But...
Totally agree. Jumping off into the topic of the other games that we're playing right now and how we are enjoying them and potentially what Anthem could learn from them. You brought up Division 2. I like Division 2. I like that gear chase. It's another game where I'm powering up my character, and I realize that's what I like the most. That is the most fun thing that I like about the games. My problem with Destiny that I don't feel like I've fully articulated the way that I want to. It's not that there was a power level chase because I was doing it casually and sort of for fun. It's that there was a restriction to access a piece of content unless you had a gear score that I wasn't aware of until a week after the content had been out. I missed it in the update because I had plans to go to Disneyland with my girlfriend and everything. I was doing this show, and that's kind of on me. But at the same time, all I would ask is that the developer gives us a heads up ahead of launch so that I can plan appropriately to do that grind. Now, with the raid, you don't actually get locked out. You can still go in at $679 or $679, for example. You don't have to be $680 to even access it. So I would have been okay had that been the case, but for this one, everybody had to be $680, and I ended up making it. I did the content, and I actually love the Reckoning. One short thing, Dantics' point about how the core gameplay loop is with Anthem, I absolutely agree. Being a flying robot man with superpowers, and I've said this so many times in the show, I feel like I'm being redundant. It is phenomenally fun. And doing that with your friends is also really, really fun. They have something there. There's this core nugget, and that's why the game still has a community, even as frustrated as they are. They still have this core community that loves and understands that there is something really, really special about Anthem within all of the problems that they see.
Yeah, 100%.
And yes, I hope it gets fixed. But when you play something like Division 2, it's very, very apparent why that part of Anthem is special. Because Division 2 is cover, gear-based shooter with armor that has interesting perks. And hey, Anthem, figure out your armor perks and gear sets and such, because that is an avenue that could be incredibly interesting for your game. I'll pass it off to Eric next because I feel like I've been talking for 10 minutes straight.
That's all right.
What are you're the Division guy. You do a ton of Division content. How are you feeling about, do you want to talk about Division, Destiny? What have you been playing, and what do you think Anthem could learn
Yeah,
from
I mean, so it's completely been like, it's been a past week of just like non-stop Division, and honestly, I've been super impressed with it. I mean, I've always been a fan of, I've been playing Division 1 since the alpha anyway, and fully looking forward to kind of going back in this week. But it was interesting because it was kind of a different thing. Like when both Anthem and like Division hadn't been out, like, I was looking forward to Division because I was like, I've played it, I know I'll like it. Whereas Anthem was like a new. I was almost more excited for that because it was completely new to me. But I will say that probably of all the looter shooters that I have played, or at least kind of all the three main ones like Division, Destiny, and Anthem now, like it has probably had the most solid launch because it has tons of content so far.
Division
it has
2,
tons of stuff to do. Division 2, it has tons of content, tons of stuff to do so far. They haven't had many issues since launch. They had a few crashes, they had a couple of bugs that they've tried to address, but largely speaking, I mean, obviously they learned a lot from the first one, right? And I feel like it was kind of expected, right? It's the same sort of thing as like if you've had a first one and you had a lot of issues and you launch a second one, you kind of need to be getting it right, okay? So, and I think they did that. And there's lots of kind of interesting things. I would say Division's been kind of a different one. It's been like it's a really polished, solid product. There haven't been as many moments in Division that have blown me away. I had a few like those moments in Anthem where I was like, yo, this is so cool. Whereas Division's just been like, yo, this is just a solid, really well-made product. Ton of fun, lots of stuff to do. I'm getting loot left, right, and center. There's a lot of build diversity, almost too daunting sometimes, because in Division you have like gear pieces, you have weapon talents, you have gear talents, you have mods for your gear pieces, mods for your weapons. There's so many little things you min max. But that's been really good, and also just some of the stuff they've made in the world, and I feel like that's one of the things I would love to see in Anthem. Like Anthem has a really interesting world, and obviously it's got the kind of scope they could tell with the story, and even down to Division, which in theory is one of those games kind of grounded in reality, right, being a fantasy game. And they've had these interesting mysteries we chase all week, like these hunter masks, where there are some really obscure things you have to do in the world, like going around, interacting with things, pressing certain buttons, going to certain locations at certain times, and then like a hunter or like a boss will spawn, like things like that. I feel sort of like short-term things that I would love to see added in Anthem. I mean, like it's got this really awesome world, but imagine if if they actually hid a lot more mystery in there. I mean, I remember we spoke in like week 1 about like the tombs. There could have been so much more they did with them. Like if there were these interesting things where, I don't know, you go around the world, you start chasing these mysteries, and suddenly it spawns a new world boss. I mean, that kind of stuff. Like that's kind of been the focus of my past 2 days. There's like 12 of these bosses hidden around the world, and I've finally done them all. So yeah, there's a lot of things like that I feel Anthem could kind of take on, and it would just fit really nicely in the world. So,
for sure,
completely agree.
What about you, Dantics? What are your thoughts?
I haven't played too much of Division 2, honestly. I played the first little section, obviously the tutorial section, and then I played through until I unlocked clans. Yeah, look, I really enjoy it. The one thing I don't like about it is that abilities aren't as prevalent as they are in Anthem. I tend to just really like, I got kind of spoiled with the abilities, I think, a little bit. The guns feel better. Honestly, they feel a lot better, and I think Anthem can learn a little bit about that. And I love how much loot you get. Just getting loot almost every wave of enemies is really nice. It's just really good, and stuff you can use, which is different. And at the start of the game, at the very least, you're like, oh, look at this cool new gun. It becomes more accurate the longer you zoom down the sights, or check this new one out. It's a double barrel shotgun. That feels really good. You don't really get that same feeling in Anthem because obviously you can't equip weapons on the fly. And the no loading screens thing was fantastic. Did you guys notice that as well? Just like there's not a single loading screen. How good is that?
I really missed the still images that move slightly for many minutes of the I'm being very sarcastic. Yes. No loading screens is great. Figure that one out, please, Bioware.
Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off. Continue.
No. It's the one thing I didn't really like too much is how they dole out abilities. I feel like unlocking people or saving people and building up your kind of town in a way, I don't really like that mechanic. I want to feel like I'm going through like a skill tree or something along those lines, and I feel like Anthem could have used one of those as well. But besides that, it's a pretty good game, and I was having a bit of fun. I just haven't had much time to play it, unfortunately.
Yeah. There's actually one thing to kind of add in there, just quickly. I mean, it'd be interesting to kind of see what you guys think, because I remember we had this discussion pre-Anthem launch about like Anthem's loot and the fact that the loot, you don't see your loot until we got back. And I remember like initially when we spoke about it, I was like, you know what? I don't really kind of mind too much because you go out, you have your epic adventure, and you kind of come back.
Really?
And it's sort of like this little, it's like this little sort of like loot party. But suddenly playing Division all week, and I'm like, I dropped something, and I'm like, yo, it's an SMG. Like I really want that SMG. I almost feel like suddenly now I might have just changed sides because I kind of actually realized how much I missed that because. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's exacerbated in Anthem at the moment because things aren't dropping so frequently, and then I get to the end, and it's not what I want, and therefore I'm like, man, maybe I wouldn't mind so much if my end of thing loot screen was full of Masterworks, and then I'm like, okay, I can dismantle it. But I feel like there's that middle ground, right? It's either if you're not going to get what you want, you kind of want to know when you get it that it's not what you want, or if there's a chance of you getting what you want, then you need to have more of it. But hey, yeah, I don't know what you guys think of that, like.
Oh, look, yeah.
I always said I wanted loot to drop in the open world, so 100%.
Yeah, true.
Figure that out, Anthem. Let us switch to at least our pre-made loadouts or something so we can mess around with a few builds. And I cut off Dantics. I'm sorry, sir.
I've kind of flip-flopped. I don't know. Just like Division does it so well. It's a hard one. It's a really hard one, Alex, because it's like with Anthem, you're going through kind of like a set path that will eventually lead to a boss or like an end encounter in a lot of cases. So maybe not in your your strongholds. Maybe you can't do it there. But just in kind of like your missions or your free play or whatever, I don't see why you just can't pick up weapons or gear pieces and switch on the fly. It seems like it would kind of cut down the loading screens that kind of are forced upon you. It would also make content creators' jobs a lot easier if they need to test out multiple builds. Just saying.
Oh. Division has a shooting range.
Yeah, that's what I've asked for ages for Anthem.
One of the best things. Destiny doesn't have that. Anthem doesn't have that. And now that I've seen it in Division, I went in there for like an hour just messing out like DPS. By the way, ARs and LMGs seem to be your best option. Shotguns seem to be like they need to be tweaked. Thus far, I'm earlier than you, Eric, so maybe you have some insight on this. But dear God, more games. Give us the shooting range so we can test out builds. That's so fun. Like if you're not
a game changer,
if you're not going to let us have drops in the open world in Anthem, give us a shooting range so we can test out our builds before we take them out into the missions. I think that would be a good middle ground. Eric, have you done any experimentation with your DPS builds in the firing range?
So I mean, not at the moment. Like I used it a lot in Division 1. That was kind of the crux of like how I did a lot of the build. But like in this one, I'm still kind of at the moment I'm just on that gear chase. So right now I'm just kind of grabbing whatever I use. But I will fully be taking full advantage of that. It's the same thing when Monster Hunter World finally added like a training room where I could actually go into a training room and just hit a dummy. I was like, this is a game changer. I used to have to go out and like buy a massive dinosaur constantly just to try and get a footage of what I needed. Yeah, honestly, they could do that. They could make but it is an extension to the launch bay, right? Just be like, you go into the launch bay, walk through to your shooting range. That would be nice. That'd be nice.
That's what I thought the launch bay was going to be, honestly. I think episode 2, Destin, I mentioned that we need something like that. We need a training room. But no one else has, I don't think anyone else has mentioned it. Alex, by the way, what is your main on Monster Hunter World? What's your main weapon? I'm just curious now. You mentioned it quite a bit and you do have a lot of content.
Blade and Sword and Shield.
Sword and Shield.
Sword and board, baby. Sword and board.
Oh yeah. It's going to be the two ends of the spectrum. You've got the beginner weapon, the Sword and Shield, and then Charge Blade, which is the most technical weapon.
Yeah.
No wonder you've gone Colossus, my man.
It's got to be done, right?
So there's one more game. I think everybody knows I do a show called Fire Team Chat. It's all about Destiny, and I have been basically no-lifing Destiny for about a week and a half. And I want to talk about a few of the things that it's doing well. I also want to remind everybody who's watching, we're going to take questions from the community, and that's probably how we'll end the show. If we don't get any questions, we'll just end early. So please put them in chat at the Destin channel, at Fire Team Chat if you're watching on that platform, and we will collect them and we will answer them live on the show. Destiny just launched their expansion last week. It's Season of the Drifter. It adds Gambit Prime, for those of you who don't know. It adds The Reckoning, a new basically wave-based challenge mode. And Tier 3 is incredibly fun, and it's this team-based activity that sets challenges. And basically, if Anthem was able to add either of those components, I think it would be a phenomenal improvement. We've talked so long about how Anthem could do PvP well, and I have used Gambit as my schematic, basically, to say, make something like that. Because we can't necessarily go Javelin versus Javelin, right? But if you give us two teams facing off against each other in a mode similar, Reckoning would also work. Just have a split screen or something where you're competing against the other team. You can see their score multiplier, and you're competing there. I am having an excellent time with Reckoning. I'm having an okay time with Gambit Prime. I think there's challenges there that need to be addressed. But one other thing that Destiny is doing exceptionally well is the Xur bounties. They finally figured out how to introduce lore and cutscenes and interesting things into Destiny in a new way, and I am very, very happy to see that. So I'm having a pretty good time with Destiny. Do you guys have any thoughts about the current state of Destiny, Season of the Drifter, or have you been mostly checking out Division or other games at the moment? Dantics?
No, I actually haven't looked into it at all. So
you don't really play Destiny, right? You're like
no. So I kind of played it a little bit, and I kind of started boycotting it just because all my friends jumped off immediately after I bought it. Immediately after I bought it, everyone I knew stopped playing it. So I'm like, fine, I'm not playing it. Fine, and it's got nothing to do with the game. So
fair.
Yeah. What about you, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, same sort of thing with me at the moment, because it's the first time since Destiny has launched that I haven't been like there day one on the update, and it's just because at the moment there's just been so much stuff going on. I just haven't had a chance to juggle both of them, so like I have every intention of going and checking it out, and I'll probably be more active on Destiny towards the end of the year. But for now, I'm just like Division's been my focus. So yeah, I actually I've been watching a lot of it though. I've been kind of keeping up to date from where, like, I watch a lot of people that are obviously still covering it. So there definitely does look like there's some interesting things in there.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly difficult to juggle. Well, for you, you have Monster Hunter, you have Destiny, you have Anthem, and you have Division. That's 4. And if we add Warframe into the mix, I don't know if you guys play Warframe at all, I don't, but that's 5 major looter shooters to keep up with every week. At some point, you have to say, look, I'm only focusing on this one. And for me right now, it's mainly Destiny. And I like that we have sort of this even panel right now. We got Eric's Division 2, Dantics, mostly Anthem, and Destin, the Destiny guy, of course. And I think that's really good because we can bring the insight that we learn from each of those properties about how they can improve and go forward from there.
100%, yeah.
One question from chat was, what are some Masterwork perk ideas that could be interesting in Anthem going forward? I read it, so I had some time to think about it. I'll start to give you guys a second. I think they should really, really lean into specific build types and try not to have the counter perks, because like right now, the Ranger, for example, it has blast damage and impact damage sort of competing against each other. That really, really weakens it as a javelin. And I think just lean only into one of those stats and like make the drop still interesting so that we can have crazy blast damage or crazy impact damage. And I think that would be just a really, really interesting build for that particular character type. There are already builds for laser beam and such, so there's that. What about you guys? What do you think Anthem should lean into Masterwork wise that you would be interesting for your javelins or changes that you would like to see?
I think, I've said it before, I think they should just be like drastically different kind of perks that make you have to build around that particular item. Like, for example, making like an echo clone of your character when you cast an ability, which would continue to fire that ability. Therefore, you could build around that and build around just that damage type, so you can start making clones of yourself. There could be different things, like when you fire a homing missile, for example, it could fire 2 instead of 1. That would also change up the fact that you might need more impact damage. Make it so perhaps your Ranger Ultimate only fires 1 big missile instead of multiple, and then it functions completely differently. Make it so the Colossus actually loses its shield and gains like an energy shield instead, and maybe a roll. So change up the Colossus, how it functions in some way. Just things that kind of change up the gameplay and make it so, I've got this Masterwork. Now maybe I have to perhaps think about how I can get the most out of it. It could be, the flamethrower turns into a single fire, longer range flame projectile, for example. It's not close range anymore. And there you can start thinking about maybe better combos that you can get off at range. So things like that would be interesting.
For sure. Eric.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I'd like to see, like I mentioned the other day about how they could short term increase like the loot pool by kind of making it so that even the same ability has like 3 or 4 different permutations. And to your point of like having it so you can lean more into specific build types, I'd almost like it if they would maybe give you like an offensive and a defensive variant of some of those. So the example being that like the blast missile for the Colossus, like if you're going to use it, it fits perfectly for my build because it's a tank build, right? You shoot it and it gives you shield back. But what if you wanted to use that ability, but you weren't fussed about generating shield because you want it to be more offensive, right? So I almost feel like short term, I'd like them just to kind of look at what skill or what kind of like role that skill fills and try to then duplicate it and give it like a defensive version. So like taking the blast missile, you have the shield generating version. Maybe you have one where when it connects, it then explodes into like a smaller mortar or something, right? Or you have abilities that I would like it as well if there are abilities that could slightly differently augment your melee. So for the Colossus, maybe if I don't know, detonated a combo, then suddenly it like primes my shield with an element, and then I can start charging through people, and then like priming them in the process, right? So I think that's what I'd like to see short term. I'd just like to see instead of just like one Masterwork perk like that, I'd just like to see multiple items have multiple perks, because then it gives you so much more to grind for, right? Then you're not just looking for the blast missile, you're looking for the blast missile that does this.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I completely agree. There needs to be more versions of each kind of ability, each kind of weapon. As you were saying, offensive, defensive, maybe support maybe just completely changes things up, like adds something that doesn't really fit within that kind of bracket. So I completely agree. Once again, the more options you have, the more things to chase, the more things you need, the more you want to play, right?
Yeah. When you're rewarded properly for your time, and one of my biggest critiques about Destiny right now is that wasn't happening. A lot of people are saying I'm getting negative drops. Well, in Anthem, when they have all this press and factual information saying that equipping one legendary is basically your best DPS build, it really de-incentivizes you from playing the game entirely until it's adjusted. So once that is addressed, then heck yeah, jump in, make your awesome build, and the builds that you guys are talking about would really lean into that. We had an interesting question from chat. By the way, leave your question in the chat. And it was about Bioware. The question was, do you think Bioware gets more hate from its community than other developers? And I would say yes, and I think that's because they are held to an incredibly high standard, because when people see Bioware, they think of Mass Effect. They think of the other games that they made, like Dragon Age, Star Wars, the Star Wars games that they made back in the day, and they have these really incredibly fond memories about the level of polish and the experiences that they went through. So when they released something like Andromeda that didn't meet expectations for a lot of people, and they release Anthem and it's sort of mired in this controversy, I think they get a lot of hate because people have this nostalgia look back and they want to have that feeling again from Bioware, and they've been looking for them for that. And when they don't get it, they get really, really mad. And Anthem got a lot of criticism, and I think a lot of it is completely justified. It's when you start veering into attacking the developer, that's not okay. I'm okay with criticism 100%. I'm critical about Anthem. I think we've all been fairly critical about Anthem. It's about how you present that criticism, and when you're personally attacking people, that's crossing a line that I don't agree with. So yes, criticism's okay. Dantics, do you think they get more hate than other developers? And why, or why not?
Sorry, I'm jumping in on this one, but I feel like I've followed Bioware from their very start. From the very start, I've been a Bioware fan. I feel like they have been almost invincible up till Mass Effect 3. And people were expecting them to just release hit after hit with no mistakes all the way up to Mass Effect 3. When that dropped, people were disappointed at the ending. People were disappointed at how it played out and the promises that weren't quite kept. That was the beginning of this whole kind of Bioware's spiral, right? And then there was Andromeda and Dragon Age Inquisition. Both didn't really hit the mark exactly. And then Anthem. And now it's like, because of EA, that's also compounded their publishers going through, obviously, a lot of controversy as well. Both of those issues together have made Bioware kind of a target to point all frustrations. And there's been a lot of frustrations recently, Fallout 76, for example. Been a lot of that, and people just rightly want something that they can sink all of their time into. And they see this fantastic developer kind of falling from grace. What they used to be and what they are now, they just kind of point fingers at, this is the direction we're going. They want a great single player experience, and they see something like Anthem come out, and it's very easy to attack. It's just incredibly easy. BioWare is just this easy target, and no matter what you say, no one's going to kind of dispute you if you give them crap, so to speak. So I feel like, yes, they do unjustly get a lot of hate, but it's also brought on themselves a little bit. I hate to say. So it absolutely sucks, because I really want them to succeed. I really do. And Destin, I've seen a lot of your Bioware content on your channel, best Renegade moments and stuff like that.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, I really
love
enjoy
Bioware
that kind of stuff.
and Mass Effect. Yeah.
Yeah, I really love that stuff. Like, they've just made some amazing content. I can still go back now whenever I'm feeling down and play some Mass Effect 2, and it picks me right up. Just the storytelling and everything. And I feel like people just want that again. And that's what they're crying for.
Yeah. Sorry, you got me excited about Renegade moments. Fun fact about Mass Effect 3, I have all of that captured, all the terrible things you can do in Mass Effect 3, except for the ones that you have to do certain things in Mass Effect 2. I need to play through the entirety of Mass Effect 2 to get Kelly Chambers committing suicide. and and you have to kill like a certain amount of crew members to get this Kasumi thing where Kasumi dies. I have to do terrible things in Mass Effect 2 to set up for Mass Effect 3 to get all of the terrible things, and it's just a really, really long thing. But yes, I'm a big Bioware fan. I haven't played through the Dragon Age games though. I'm mostly a Mass Effect sci-fi guy, so like that's my thing. And Eric, did you have any comments about Bioware getting more hate than other developers about that core question we were talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just a similar sort of thing, right? It's the unfortunate reality when you build such a legacy, right? I mean, because it's to a degree, it's kind of what Bungie got like when they had the Destiny problems, right? Because people are like, "Yo, you made Halo, like what? How are you doing this?" Right? So I think it's one of those things as well. Like, it also depends on where you're coming from. Like before Anthem launched, there were two very different sides, right? Like I'm someone that kind of doesn't have as big experience with Bioware titles, so I came into Anthem as a looter shooter fan. Is like, this is kind of the genre that I like. Meanwhile, obviously there are a lot of people that are coming in as like, I want a Bioware game. So I guess the people that are kind of the core diehard Bioware fans that obviously appreciate the storytelling, when they come in, they're like, all right, fine, we'll check out what they're doing. But then when they realize it's not what they want and they're not getting their story thing, it's like, they've obviously said they work on other stuff anyway, so I'm sure you'll still get your Bioware fix in the future. But yeah, regardless, I think it's just one of those things. It's like, unfortunately, when you've built such a legacy, you kind of like, if it doesn't meet what people want, they start to lash out, right? It doesn't necessarily mean to make mistakes, right? But it's kind of what happens, right? So
yeah, I mean, they went from 3 titles that kind of work really well together, that synergize together, like you were saying, Destin, how someone dying back in the second can really impact the third and the conversations you can have. And actually, if you don't recruit one of the characters from the start, from the first game, there's a completely different dialogue in the third. Like a whole scene plays out completely differently. It's just the amount of effort they have to put into the third with all the different pathways. Shows you how much effort they put into that game, right? And then you have something like Anthem that comes out that's, a lot of the story is inconsequential. It's fun, it's interesting, but it doesn't really matter. There's no choices, and then there's all these bugs, and it's not that long. There's not that much content, and people are pointing fingers because of that, and I kind of understand it. I kind of do. But at the end of the day, this is going to be an ongoing kind of project for Bioware. So I feel like if we were to, let's say we were to stop this chat right now and say, let's meet back in a year and talk about the game. If we did that, I feel like we would be able to talk for the full day. I think there would be a lot more content. Yeah. I think it's going to be a completely different game now than it is in even a couple months, I think. But in a year, if we check back in a year, I think it's going to be something that you could jump in and play and have a lot of fun with. So
I think the other important thing to add as well is like, kind of going back to the question before about like the hate stuff as well, is like companies, developers sometimes they want to try something different, right? And it might be, and it's quite hard for, a lot of people become so familiar with stuff and so established with stuff. They're like, I know, like, for example, I'll go to Bioware for my story stuff, or I'll go to like, I don't know, this company for my FPS fix or something, right? But it's like, but sometimes you get to a point where companies want to try different things anyway, right? And I'm all for letting people, like, it's the same reason that like when Kojima left and he didn't, obviously ignoring all the Konami stuff, but like when he did, he's like, I don't want to keep making Metal Gear Solid, right? I know that's what I'm known for, but I don't want to just do this until I'm dead, right? So he goes off and does his own thing, and like I'm all for letting people kind of try different things and do different things. So like, I'm fully kind of excited to see where Anthem goes. Like, yes, right now they have a lot of problems, they have a lot of work to do, but yeah, I'm confident that exactly as you said, like fast forward 6 months, 12 months, there's lots of content coming throughout the year, and it's all free. Like, literally, like that's why I'm so. People kind of often say, why do you not complain about it so much? I'm so like relaxed about it because literally it's like I've bought the base game, and I'm going to jump in whenever there's a free update, and otherwise I've got other stuff to play. Like, it's literally that simple for me. Like that's my mentality. Right? I'm like, I enjoy it, I jump in, have some fun, roll out, come back, bosh. Like, I don't see things like this. It's not.
So
it's not more complicated than that.
It's pretty simple.
Going forward, let's end the show on one thing that you would like to see Anthem improve over the next 3 to 6 months. For me, I would like to see some truly excellent Bioware quality storytelling that really introduces a compelling villain that doesn't end up just being something that gets hit by a truck at the end. That would have been great. And let's just talk about that for a second, because we actually have it.
What percentage of health does he get to before he gets hit by that?
Yeah, he's not even fully dead. He has like a
He's
whole
not fully
bar
dead.
and a half. Yeah.
I felt robbed when that happened. I'm like,
Yeah.
can you at least let me kill him, like, and then get hit by the truck? Like, I feel like I get
can I
robbed
get
of
a
that little
truck?
bit of health.
Can I get a truck as an ultimate ability?
Yeah.
Like
You
the
just like
storm
power
bring
up, trucks
down.
start falling.
Yeah.
That would
You
be
just like get out your phone. All right, do it.
yeah, that would be a good April Fool's joke for Anthem for
That
sure.
would be amazing.
Yeah, so for me, just a really really compelling narrative beat in the next 6 months would bring me back at least to check it out. And yeah, what about for you guys? One thing that you think should be addressed in the world of Anthem?
I just want to come back and there to be a lot of loot that works really well with
Yeah.
a character sheet. Let me min max. Let me see what I'm working towards at least. Maybe if I look at a mission specifically, or say this is the kind of loot you can get. Maybe like we were talking about, Arex, just multiple different kinds of masterworks and legendaries for each kind of ability and weapon. Just something for me to work towards. I really don't even mind if there's not that much more story content or strongholds or whatever, but I just really want more to get.
Yeah.
Alex?
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, oh yeah, I was gonna say loot anyway, but since you said that, then I guess the other thing for me is sort of like part of the daily loop, right? Is like, I just give me a few more, even if it's not like, you know, obviously the ultimate thing for me is like, oh, you know, I want to kind of have like a raid like activity, but even in the interim, just give me a few more things that I can do in the world that I can factor into my daily loop that isn't just strongholds and legendary contracts. You know, like give me activities I can kind of go out and just like log in each day, run through them, get some rewards. That's me, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Well,
And
that's
mysteries in the world.
that's basically everything we wanted to cover in the show this week. I do want to say one thing. We're probably going to move a little bit more towards having these conversations about the looter shooter genre, unless something major is happening about Anthem. So the show at its core was developed as an Anthem show, but a lot of people have been asking us to talk more about our knowledge widely. So I'm happy to do that for you guys, talk more about the looter shooter space. And I know that each of us sort of play a lot of different games, and we can bring that knowledge and potentially talk about how it can work with Anthem. Let us know what you think about that in the comments this week. Do you guys have anything
Just
you
to
want
add?
Yeah.
Yeah, just to add, there's also the potential of Borderlands 3 being revealed very, very, very soon. So that's something I think we should and most definitely will talk about. That's something I will be covering extensively, and I'm sure a lot of you guys will be as well. And I think that really fits well into the kind of looter shooter genre right now that we've kind of been developing. So
Yeah, for sure. Eric, any thoughts?
Are we going to call it Guardian Agent Freelancer Chat?
Maybe Agent Freelancer Chat.
Agent
Destiny.
Freelancer. There we go. Yeah.
I'll figure out the naming later, but for now, I just kind of want to give people a heads up. Yes, we'll still talk about Anthem and such, but like nothing's really going on. There's like these incremental patches. There's a lot of drama with what the developers are saying, but we don't want to just have two topics to talk about each week. So we're going to flesh it out a little bit, talking about all the games that we're playing because we're all big looter shooter fans, and it kind of opens us up to bring on new guests and stuff too. So yeah.
I think it's a good retrospect as well. It's like if we can talk about all of them together, then we can talk about what specific problems and what things are done well more extensively. It's not just hey, this is Anthem in a bubble. We can look at Destiny does loot better and Destiny does weapons better, but Anthem does abilities better and Borderlands 3 does loot better, for example. So we could kind of go through that kind of stuff, which I think is a lot more fun.
Yeah, for sure. So just giving everybody a heads up, don't forget that this show is supported by you. So if you want to subscribe or check out our channels, be sure to check out Eric's over at youtube.com/Eric'sG, right?
That's the one.
Yeah. And Dantics Official, youtube.com/Dantics Official. And me.
Or just Dantics.
Or just Dantics. My bad.
Just Dantics.
Dantics Official is your YouTube or your Twitter?
No, it's my Twitter and Instagram. I just started on Instagram, so
got it.
Dantics Official. Because someone always takes Dantics for whatever reason. Who would have guessed?
It's really, really good. Anyway, that's it for this episode, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, freelancers, it's time to get back to work. I'll see you in a second.